turn to. All options were removed, which is exactly how God planned it. And in the brick walls I was surrounded with, his voice spoke through and told me there's a doorway, and the doorway was a path to him. And until I got to experience this power called God, I was still in bondage. And even in recovery, I can still experience bondage to self, because in my condition, whether I'm spiritually fit or not, I'm still a broken vessel. And that is something that makes me turn to God even more in my brokenness. Spirituality must touch every single area of my life, or it touches none of my life. The interesting thing about this, as soon as I claim to be spiritual, I'm no longer spiritual. But in the seeking, in the chopping wood and carrying water to experience all of this God, and I'm wondering when am I going to get there, that's usually when I'm most spiritual. When I'm feeling most vulnerable and most weak, it's when I feel all of God's strength and guidance. When I'm not in charge, and I know that. It's when I can get guidance and rely on intuitiveness. And our book talks about developing this vital sixth sense. And I'll be honest with you, early on in AA, I would read that and I'm saying, it's interesting how they say develop this vital sixth sense. Is it possible it was always there and we're just accustomed and been taught to five senses because the God sense is intangible? You really can't figure it until you touch it. And we come into Alcoholics Anonymous, and as I wake up spiritually, I'm suddenly given this voice, this guidance, this godly voice that happened to me in wreckage of me, June 23rd, 1988, because God doesn't care about what's going on. When God wants to show up, he'll show up and cut right through all the noise. And that's drunk or sober. And so I was brought to Alcoholics Anonymous and have been fed everything. I've done nothing for my recovery, and that's not being falsely humble. That's just the truth. Because of myself, I am nothing. The Father doeth the works. For years, I would tell you how hard I've been working for my recovery, and I meant that. I really meant that from the soul. But I've come to wake up a little bit more and find out I don't have the endurance, the courage, the strength, the direction, the patience, the tolerance, the acceptance to do any of this stuff. I'm an alcoholic. I want the easiest off the way on my terms all the time. I'm always wanting to be the director. And left untreated, that's me. But treated, something happens. God gave me a gift of desperation and a willingness to be teachable, and you fed me information as you still do now. So although I'm asked to lead this meeting, trust me, you're feeding me by just being there, as I still get used to this thing called Zoom. It's kind of weird, but here we are. And I'm grateful we have this than rather be in blackout altogether. So when our book talks about the 11th step, being quick means another line is make haste, meaning hurry, do it now. To see where religious people are right, make use of what they offer. And the best way I can describe that is with two stories. And one is, we all remember 9/11. And I was in Atlanta, Georgia, working, doing college fairs for this company I was working for and recruiting college kids and things like that. And on that Tuesday morning, as we all know, the world seemed like it was about to end. And we eventually had to evacuate, and you guys know the details. And I'm sitting in my hotel room, and I don't know what to do. The phone lines are down. I have no clue what's going on with my family back home. And like most of us, I am petrified. And I was watching TV that night, and there used to be a show called Larry King on. And I remember I dropped to my knees that day, and this was brought to me. And the very first thing I did in prayer as I was weeping was praying for everyone who was affected by that and the people who we knew died in that. And the other thing that came out of my mouth was what appeared to be our enemies at the time. I prayed for them. And the prayer went something like, Father, fill their hearts with love. Because what I came to me, if their hearts were filled with love, if my heart was filled with love, I'm not going to harm you, and vice versa. Rather than revenge and retaliation, which begets more revenge and retaliation. Yeah? So that's what I did. So I'm watching this TV show, and he had a pastor, he had a priest, and he had a rabbi. It sounds like a joke, walked into a bar. But So I'm listening, and he asked a question, and it went something like, where was God today? And that was on, I think, everyone's mind. Where was God when horrible events like this happened? And I'm sitting and I'm begging for an answer. And I realized how much contempt I had prior to investigation, because the Christian pastor went up there. He said, okay, he's going to give me a rock solid answer. Fell right on his face, had no answer. He danced around it. Well, I'm a Catholic, and here comes the priest. I says, come on, give me something. I can sleep tonight, just something. You're a Catholic like me, you're a priest, let's go. Fell right on his face, danced around it. And then they went to the rabbi, and my head went, oh no, I'm not a Jew. What's he going to tell me? And he hit it out of the park. He gave about a 10-minute answer that I says, depth and weight, oh my God, I got it from a rabbi. And I took what he said and I sat it in the soul through meditation that night, and I slept in horrific situation like all of us were going through, of the what's going to happen now moment. Where's this going to take us? And it was a great lesson for me to be quick to see where religious people are right and make use of what they offer. Here was a fellow, a rabbi from another religion that I know nothing about, but God opened me up in desperation to get something to feed my soul, and he hit it out of the park for me, and I'll never forget that. Another quick story is I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous. Let's see, I'm sober almost 32 years, so I'm going to say this is about in the neighborhood of 8-10 years ago, about. And I'm working with my current sponsor, Mickey Mussett from Denver, Colorado, who I really believe is just sent to me by God. And we're doing a 5th step. And I'm reading my 5th step to him. Now, I will tell you, as a Catholic, I would go to church, not mass, not go to mass, go to mass, not go. I always went to church to light candles. But the service, the mass, in and out. And my mind would say, we need to get back. And I get there, take inventory, criticize someone, and then leave. Criticize the priest and leave. And what I learned is a valuable lesson. The amount I'm going to criticize you should equate the amount I'm going to spend time helping you. And I wasn't doing that. And I got caught up in a lot of the headlines about my religion that a lot of us are familiar with, and looked askance at people who claim to be godly. Yeah? So I'm doing this 5th step. And I get to the part in the inventory that talks about resentment with institutions. And I read this inventory to my sponsor, Mickey, and it was resentment, Catholic Church, cause, and I gave him all the reasons and moved right into the 3rd and 4th column. And my sponsor said, hold on, back up, which is sponsor language for you've been caught, you're in trouble. And he says, how long have you been nursing this resentment? And like a good alcoholic, I made a case for a justified resentment. As I know, no resentment's acceptable, all are unacceptable. It's plaque on the soul. And I can go from living in the moment to living in thought. And when I start to live in thought, that overrides everything. I start to pay more attention to my thoughts, my thinking that manifests in my life, and that becomes more important than God and living in the moment. In my own life, it becomes more important than my own life, because all my thoughts are so real. That's why they feel so powerful, and they justify everything they give me. And I'm caught up in this web. And then my sponsor said to me, he gave me some questions. He said, how long have you been going to AA for? And I told him, as long as I'm sober. And he says, is every AA meeting a good meeting? I says, well, no. He's out there 13 steppers in AA. I says, yeah. He says, do some people get coins and chips claiming to be sober while they're still loaded? I says, yeah. He's, but don't you keep going back and practicing love and tolerance and acceptance? He's, yeah. And bring us a solution to a meeting? He's, yeah. He's, how come you can't do that with your church? I had no answer for him, because he was right. The truth found me again. The truth will always find us. And he says, I'm going to encourage you to be a member of your church community, of your religion again. But first, you need to be rid of that resentment. And you need to be more open-minded than full of contempt, pride, investigation, and being quick to see where those people, because there are some of them who were right on the money, and I was using a couple of things as wholesale condemnation. I was sick and they weren't. I was still caught up in the head. I was still caught up in old resentments. So I was not yet free. I felt free, but not really free. You know? This is what the mind does. It manifests in every single area of my life. See, a price will be paid for not going through the steps. And that's going on to the bitter end. And the price will be paid for going through the steps. And that's destruction of self-centeredness, where the ego gets grinded into dust, and I'm challenged with my own ideas, attitudes, emotions, and belief systems when the truth shows up and say, you're living a lie. The truth is true until I find out a new truth, yeah? So there I was. 6, 7, 8, they're on the list. 9, I walk into my local church here, which I'm a member of now, thank God. And I walked in and I something called confession, which we have. We get let off the hook. And I sat down and I told my member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and this is what I've been thinking, and this is what I've been saying. I've been slandering and gossiping and have all this contempt. And I went on and on and on. And I forget what he said. He said, are you sorry for this? He gave me absolution, but he said to me on the front end, I'll never forget this, is I understand. And I was taken back by that. And he spent a handful of some minutes in there with me, talking to me about what I was experiencing. He didn't say you're going right to hell over this and shame on you. He got it. And he won my confidence in just a few minutes. And I says, I need to ask you, what can I do to make this right? And he says, well, can you come to Mass tomorrow morning? I says, I can do that. And Sunday morning I went. And as I was walking in, I see all the folks going in, the church bells are going off, and I can feel my chest vibrating. And I was with my better half, Marion. And we went in typical alcoholic, I'm sitting in the back row. I'm not worthy. The sinner walked in to sit up front. You know, the wretch that I am. I've been having all these bad feelings about this whole thing. And I'm sitting, and here's what happened in there. God gave me new ears, new eyes, and an awakened soul. I heard it and saw it for the first time. Suddenly, I was living in a different place. And I wanted what I was seeing so bad. And I realized how much my soul has been starving. Like when an alkie walks into AA and hears a drunk tell a story and says, oh my God, they're speaking my language. Bill Dotson did that with Bill and Bob. We hear it all the time when we tell a story. We're identifying with each other because we have alcoholism, not alcoholism. This is my tribe. And so about 2/3 of the way through, we hold hands before the coronavirus and we do the Lord's Prayer. And this is like AA. I forgot we did that. And I started to weep. My soul was overflowing with joy. And Marion's standing right next to me, and I can't look at her because she's going to see me crying, Mr. Big Shot. And she started crying, and we're two and crying together. We look, and my life's never been the same. And what I've done many times is gone back there and set up an appointment with the priest for some of my problems, some of my challenges, some of my uncertainty, along with my sponsor, to get answers, because now I trust what they're going to tell me, which is vastly different from where it was 15 years ago or 20 years ago, being quick to see where religious people are right and making use of what they offer. There's another piece to this that I need to take a look at. Someone doesn't have to be a man or woman of the cloth to be religious. They can be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. We know folks in civilian life who are devoutly religious and live the life, not only have information, but have had a transformation that we can go to them and they will give us directions and we will act accordingly because of a bond called trust, yeah? That overrides the mind. See, the mind overrides everything except God and the soul. So there are many members in AA. My sponsor is one of them that I consider very religious. I've spoken to his son, who's a priest, and I will speak to anyone. Because since when, because I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, do I think I have all the answers, not only for me, but for you? Hmm? It's the emptying out of me by subtraction, by removal, that I'm able to get filled with God's Spirit. This process of recovery is never about addition. It's always about removal. In order for me to experience this, there was something I wrote down and I wanted to share with you. In order for me to experience this, my experience has been I need to have gone through the 12 steps to awaken the soul. This type of godly experiences that we talk about in AA, for me, is not going to happen as a result of just don't drink and go to meetings. Because I'm the same person after 90 days or 6 months or a year. I'm just sober with the same ideas, attitudes, emotions, skepticism, and doubt that I walked in with. Maybe they've been refined a little bit. Maybe they've been toned down a little bit, but that guy is still breathing and that guy has to go. Something happens as a result of going steps through 4 through 9, where we get to enter the world of the spirit and being disciplined to a spiritual life, because in that discipline, there is freedom. When I was a young kid, around 7 years old, my best friend, I was just sharing this story over the weekend. My best friend was this fella named Joe, just like the actor, Joe Pesci. That was his name. We were best friends. And he was just as loony as the actor. And in the summertime, he would ride into my driveway on his bicycle in pajamas and barefoot, and he'd just roll in and call my name. And I'd run down and hop on my bike in my pajamas and barefoot. And back in my town called Brooklyn, New York, in the 60s, it wasn't like it is now. We can go out and play and come back when the sun went down, and mom really wasn't worried about us. It was a different time. And that's what we used to do all morning during the summertime. And we used to stop at this little candy store. My mom would give us some money and then come back and have breakfast. And one morning we were in the candy store, and this older fellow walked in and got a kick out of seeing these two youngins in pajamas and barefoot early in the morning riding around their bicycles. And he made a comment, something like, hey, look at these two kids on their bicycles, barefoot in their pajamas. And they laughed about it. And my best friend Joey got on the bicycle and was about to ride away. But what I heard, I touched ego for the first time. I touched thought for the first time. And I went from living in the moment to living in thought. What I heard was, look at these two idiots riding on in their pajamas and barefoot. They should have jobs by now. And I remember my chest pounding because I felt shame and embarrassment over doing something that most children would do. And when Joey came into my yard, my driveway the next morning, I lied to him. I learned how to lie and made excuses. And I never rode with him again on the bike like that, because I quickly got into what you think of me, how I appear to you, how I sound to you, how I can lie to you to get your approval, how I believed I was a people pleaser when I was just a me pleaser in order to get your approval. And it went on and on and on. And here comes fear, skepticism, doubt, current agnosticism, self-reliance, and a ton of unmanageability. And my default button says, the more I can manage you, that means I can manage my life. And it just got very, very, very unmanageable. And the only thing that would shut that down is a pint of whiskey, where I felt in control and powerful and I can manage my life. And that boomeranged and cut me to ribbons. And I was really in serious, serious trouble. In sobriety, yeah? In sobriety, I can be the same cat in sobriety with double-digit sobriety and still relying on thought rather than the present moment where I can only experience God. Still relying on approval on what you think of me, how I sound to you, do I dress okay, so I feel good about me. And the thinking is repetitive, 24/7. It never stops. There's no God in that equation until I hit the brick wall. And when I hit the brick wall and run out of road, I might at that point drop to my knees and say, I need help, and the truth will find me all the time. Yeah. I go to AA and I say, but for the grace of God, but for the grace of God, but for the grace of God. I have this life, I have my sobriety, I have my health, I have this money, I have my family, but for the grace of God, will I ever go to God's house and say, thank you for giving me your grace? Oh, I can't do that because of this, and because I come up with a whole Rolodex of excuses why I can't go to my Father's house. And I justify and rationalize it. It would be like if Ali did all sorts of wonderful things to me 7 days a week, 365 days a year, didn't expect a thank you, just Ali loves me and gives me and gives me and gives me and gives me. And I keep taking. And I'm telling all of you what a great guy Ali is. And then one day Ali says, hey, it's my birthday. Can you come to my house? And I ask him, well, who's going to be there? Well, I don't like those people. I'm busy. I'll see you on the rebound. And then he said, there's a holiday. I would love for you to come to my house. Can you come for 1 hour? Just hang out for an hour. You don't have to do anything. And I give him another excuse. What kind of friend am I? I'm a hypocrite is what I am. And I woke up to that in sobriety. I'm a hypocrite because I'm telling you what this great God has done for me. I haven't been to his house in a really long time, just to say, hey, thanks. Yeah, be quick to see where religious people write, make use of what they offer. It talks about helpful books that I can get from a priest, minister, rabbi, ad infinitum. I will gobble up any information nowadays. God has given me that. And what I like, I stay with. What speaks to my soul. And what I don't throw out, I put on the shelf. It's just a couple of things I like to talk about and going through the works in order for me to wake up and experience some of this. To experience a shift in me when a youngin' comes in counting days and might be talking gibberish, but he still speaks to my soul, or might even say something profound in counting days. And if I'm in my mind, I'm going to say, well, he's a youngin', he's counting days, he has nothing to offer. I just played God. I just put a wall between me and a new guy. And our book says, in working with others, perhaps they've done more for you than I've done for them. Yeah? On awakening, my book says, let's think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, and self-seeking motives. I need to take a look at what kind of motives I'm going through the day with. What am I seeking as my higher power? What have I replaced God with? Maybe I'm reading self-help books. Maybe I'm reading religious books. Maybe I'm reading spiritual books. Maybe I'm involved in therapy. Maybe I'm going to the gym. Maybe I'm eating. I'm doing all these good things to help me get out of where I am, to grow in understanding and effectiveness. And all those things are good. But what I lack is the power for them to be sustained. Everything comes back to God. And it's a difference when I'm grounded in God and I pick up a book and it becomes internalized. There's just shift in me. Yeah. This was nothing like I lived when I first got to Alcoholics Anonymous. I thought I had to perform some miracle. And if I change, God will love me. And I found out God loves me so that I change. And he's the one doing the changing. There's a big difference between me working on me to change, and God changing me into what he wants me to be all along. I can easily walk down, when I'm left on my own, walk down a path that I think is my path to achieve this goal. And it's actually the path that's driving me further and further and further away from my truth and what God has for me. Yeah. So my practice started from this book, and it's on awakening to get right with God. I have a whole bunch of books that I read after prayer and meditation. Some are from my religion, some aren't. Some are Eastern philosophy. I really don't care. Whatever feeds the soul, feeds the soul. It was a rude awakening to wake up to, guys, in Alcoholics Anonymous. And what I felt was it being a member of good standing, where I had contempt for an investigation about those other religious folks who didn't come from my tree. And I'm not proud of that, but it was just a subtle thing where, like on 9/11, what's a rabbi going to tell me when I hadn't been to Mass in God knows how long? The hypocrisy that still lived in my soul, but the truth found me in awful conditions, awful circumstances. And so that was a learning piece for me in my life, and very humbling to be quick to see where religious people are and make use of what they offer, make use of what everyone offers. On awakening, my sponsor gave me a great assignment a couple of years ago. I kind of piggybacked on what I've been doing since I got sober. Is on awakening, as soon as my eyes open, I immediately make contact with God. I make conscious contact because I'm not unconscious anymore, conscious contact with God, and thank Him for this day, because this is what can happen. Have you ever awakened first thing in the morning and you open your eyes and find yourself in the middle of an argument? As soon as you open up your eyes, you're like playing something that happened 3 days ago or 3 years ago, or we know what's going to happen when we get to the office, and you woke up at 6 and by 6:02 you're in lock and load and I'm going in. Yeah, so on awakening, thank you, Father, for this day. And then what we do, what I was told to do is I sit. I go out into my living room and I sit for about 10 minutes. It's not a formal prayer, but I let God know I'm here to go to work for you. Please take me like the wretched sinner I am. I'll go where you want me to go. I'll do what you want me to do, and I'll say what you want me to say. I'm ready to go to work. So now the slate is a little cleaner. When I go, my altar's right here. We're right next to my desk where I'm talking. And I drop to my knees and I start to pray. And I will tell you, there's many times when I'm praying, and I will tell you there's many times when I'm meditating, when this head has gotten loud and the attachments are still there, and I'm praying and I'm wondering, when's God going to fix this pandemic, when God's going to remove the corona so I can go to my home group. Yeah. When's God going to do this? When's God going to make me rich? You know, while I'm praying. In the most important event of my day, which is prayer, I have agendas. And I'm seeking control, and I'm talking to the boss, and yet there's little subtleties every once in a while of me seeking control when I'm talking to this power to get what I want, because if I get what I want, it proves He exists and loves me more than you. Because God gives me what I want, He must really love me, and when He doesn't, He probably a liar. This is sober. Now, I'm also grateful to say that doesn't happen all the time, but I would be a lie if I said every once in a while, that other guy, you know, we all have that other person, that shadow, that alcoholic us. Like, I think I have thoughts, the thoughts have me, they lock in, and then they drive me all day long. Well, what a great opportunity when I'm vulnerable, praying on my knees, for the thoughts to say, now. He's defenseless. And it'll happen to me right on my prayer meditation mat. The difference between then and now is I can hear it. I can smell it. I can see it coming. And I don't need to get locked into every single thought that happens. It's turn in order to go out, turn in order to go out. There's been times on this journey, and I'm just about out of time here, where like many of us, we've lost people to alcoholism. We've lost loved ones to illness. My dad has gotten sick a few times, and I was petrified. I've had a couple of health scares. My brother had a health scare. My middle brother has Parkinson's right now, and it knocked me on my behind. But there's an undercurrent as we awaken, as I've awakened a little bit, of okayness. I don't know how and when, but there's an undercurrent of I'm going to be okay, and they're going to be okay, and He's in charge of all of it. It has given me a greater spirit of love and tolerance. And there's something in Scripture says, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. I cannot go to bed, and I've done it a few times. I cannot go to bed without love and forgiveness. And when I do it, when I go to bed without forgiving and without loving, I wake up with that emotional hangover that 12 and 12 talks about, because on Tuesday morning, I'm wearing Monday still. Don't let the sun go down on my wrath. I learned that from a religious person. a bishop in my religion. Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Again, I was quick to see where religious people are right and make use of what they offer. I was made acutely aware of that. Clean up the wreckage of the day, if there is any. Because if I'm not clear, I can't hear. And if I can't hear, how could I be of service to the next alcoholic? And that's why God hired me and us to go to work for him. It's way beyond going to a meeting. It's way beyond speaking at a meeting. It's way beyond working with the drunk, and all those things are vital. But it's about being in touch and open to the channel that he's going to speak to us through to pass it on to others. We say we're grateful. That word doesn't even do it justice anymore if we think about it. Grateful, what does that mean? Well, you know where I'm pointing to. And we all have our grateful experiences. We have our grateful stories. And each one is different, and a lot of them are similar. But the heart is full and the soul is full on most days. So our 11th step, it's interesting, no matter how long we're sober, as we wake up, we see things we never saw before. Did you ever read the big book and say, when did they put this in here? When did that show up? It gives a different perception and conception on it based on where we currently are. And as the soul awakens, we get to see clearer, and my ears open up, I get to hear better. And that's just simply God stuff. Whether it's coming from, he downloads stuff to me, or it comes right from you. And I get to pass it on for fun and for free. And for this, I'm forever grateful. So I'm out of time here, 42 minutes. That's all I got. Thank you.